Hi, it's Lippy. I'm a shamanic healer, and in today's video, I am going to share with you 10 tips on how to maintain emotional, mental, and energetic well being. Now, it's been a long time since I made a video. I got sort of busy there because my exams are coming up in December. So, I have all this studying to get done, and I managed to squeeze some time out today to create this video, and I hope some part of it or all of it is useful to help you to maintain psychological well-being. Now, this video is going to be in two parts, and I will cover 5 tips in part 1 and 5 tips in part 2. I was observing that there are so many articles, videos, memes on physical health. So there's all kinds of advice out there on how to eat properly, what kind of foods are healthy, what kind of foods are not healthy, what kind of exercise you should do, what kind of meditation you should practice, tips on practicing mindfulness, etc., etc. And all these things are wonderful, and many of them work really well to maintain and even heal physical ailments. But there is very little advice out there on how to practice, as one psychologist says, emotional hygiene. How do you keep yourself emotionally healthy and mentally and energetically healthy? And this is what I hope to convey in the video today. So without further ado, number 1, telling the truth. Now, when I talk about telling the truth, I am not referring to white lies or the kind of lies that you sometimes need to say to prevent either endangerment for yourself or for someone else. But I'm talking about being truthful to yourself. Now, in my experience, lies have always been very damaging to the psyche. If we don't tell ourselves the truth about a particular situation, if we basically bullshit ourselves about what is really going on in our lives, then in my experience I've seen that this almost always backfires. The truth has got a bad rap, it's got a bad reputation. There's so many memes running around where they say things like, well, the bitter truth, the harsh reality, the harsh truth. And I think it scares people away from the truth when they hear things like this, because they're like, well, a lie, a beautiful lie, is much better than a bitter or a harsh truth. But in my experience, I have seen that the truth is not bitter. The truth is a liberator. It's like when you lie to yourself about things, when you finally, for however you manage to do it, tell yourself the truth. It's like taking off a very tight, very uncomfortable pair of shoes that have been giving you shoe bite. You know that feeling, that relief, we've all experienced this. And telling yourself the truth is a bit like that. So you may still have to treat the injury of the shoe bite. You may have to take the trouble of getting out and purchasing shoes that fit better. But in the long run, you prevent your feet from being damaged, just the same way as you prevent your psyche from being damaged by lying to yourself. Now, I completely respect and understand that sometimes it is not easy to see the truth about a situation, because it can be very painful. And this is what has been twisted by, I don't know who, but it's been twisted and it's just generally become part of popular culture, where people are like, well, the truth hurts and the truth is bad. Well, yeah, sometimes the truth about a situation can be very painful, and no argument there. For example, you could be in a marriage with someone and want to believe that they really love you, or they seem to love you when you got married to them, and you care about them so much. But yet your gut feeling is telling you that they're not in love with you anymore, or they don't feel the same way about you anymore, but you want to hold on to the happy lie, if I may call it that, that this guy really loves me or this person really loves me. And of course that's understandable. Who would like to wake up one morning and realize that their partner doesn't love them? However, it is that particular situation and the truth about that situation that is painful, not the truth itself. And eventually, and again I say this very, very carefully, in your own time and space, when you are ready to tell yourself the truth, believe me, it's like the best thing since sliced bread, because it will bring you the kind of relief and the kind of surrender that will unburden your soul. Now, what are the different lies that we tell ourselves? So psychologically, we say that one of the defense mechanisms is denial. We say that somebody is in denial when they're not, the pain of the consequence of telling the truth about a situation would be too much to bear for their psyche. So they go into denial to protect their psyche. And this is a natural defense mechanism. So we don't go usually into denial on purpose. Our brain automatically takes us into denial when there is a situation, or we're faced with a situation that would be too painful to tell ourselves the truth about. And if you're in that situation where you are in denial, and you will know it, even though you may not be able to, or you may not be ready to tell yourself the truth, you will feel the weight of the denial. It'll weigh down on you, either deep in your subconscious, or maybe when the denial starts coming to light, you will start feeling that burden and that energy, because a lot of energy that is required to hold down and lock away what is true. So if that is the case with you, and it is a case with a lot of people, including myself, I've been in denial so many times. Sometimes even now I have to constantly make an effort to come out of denial when I feel like I'm heading in that direction. I completely get that. I do not in any way recommend that this should be forced, that you should try to rush into forcing your brain to tell the truth, because remember, it's a defense mechanism, so it's there for a reason. However, do know that whenever you're ready, there's no timeline here. You can do this at your own pace and time. Whenever you're ready, telling yourself the truth about a situation will, in the long run, truly help you to heal. It'll help you to recover much more than it is lying about a situation. So there are so many situations where we lie to ourselves. For example, I've seen people hold on to friendships where it was very clear that the friendship was one-sided. So you may catch yourself saying something like, oh, Anita is a really nice person, and I know she really loves me. She's just a little funny sometimes, even though Anita never invites you to her parties and is constantly putting you down. Or you may say that your boss is a wonderful guy. Actually, when you really get to know him, he's a really good guy, and the only reason he yells and screams is because he wants us to do better. This despite the fact that your boss yells and screams all day long, every day, and also makes passes at you at opportune moments. Or you could have a situation where you may suspect you have a particular illness and you're really terrified, and I understand that, because I'm a little bit of a hypochondriac and have all kinds of imaginary illnesses that happen to me as well, and I'm constantly paranoid about my health. So but sometimes there's a real situation and you can be really, really frightened to go get a test done, or you could just brush it off and say like, oh no, that pain is nothing, it's not a big deal, I'll heal it with a home remedy or whatever, when actually you may have had that persistent pain for 6 months and you have tried the home remedies and it's not going away, and maybe you need to get to a doctor. Okay, so obviously it's scary to do so, and I completely respect that. But when you finally do get to it, you will see that it will be liberating, it will be healing, and it will help you to keep a strong foundation in your psyche, because lies make for a very weak foundation in your psyche and will collapse the minute a real life situation comes along that you can't handle. Number 2, have to find my number two over here because I'm not wearing my glasses and I can't see this thing very well. Listening to your intuition. This has been said. Again, there's so many articles about this. There's so many memes and videos and reference material that you have on this, listening to your intuition. But yet, so many of us fail to do so. Why? And I think the reason is a couple of things. One is that we have been so conditioned and so trained to listen to voices of authority, that if our intuition is telling us something and there's an authority or a voice of authority, or maybe a close friend, or I don't know, someone you really look up to who is saying something else, there would be a tendency for you to listen to that person and not listen to your own intuition. And this is something that you have to guard against. It happens all the time. It happens to me even today. I'm a person who listens to my intuition a lot. However, do I listen to it 100% of the time, all the time? No. And in the cases where I haven't listened to it, and I sat down later and looked at, well, why didn't I listen? Why didn't I listen to my, what they call sometimes a gut feeling or a hunch? I realized that, okay, I let an outside voice drown out my inner voice, because that's what we are trained to do. We are conditioned to do that. One of the other reasons why we don't listen to our intuition is because we sometimes confuse our intuition with other feelings. So, and there is a fine line here. There really is a fine line, and I'm going to be making a separate video, because for the longest time it would irritate the hell out of me, because I had a feeling of what my intuition is and what other feelings were, but I didn't know how to articulate it, and I still honestly don't know how to articulate it very well. But it was really frustrating, because sometimes I would think I was following my intuition when actually I was not. I was following some other feeling. And so I have been on the hunt for a discernment methodology that's foolproof. And of course nothing is foolproof, but you gotta try, right? So once again, sometimes we think we're listening to our intuition, we're actually listening to some kind of static or interference which is not our intuition, and that can cause a lot of confusion. And when things don't turn out the way we expected, it can also make you then distrust your intuition, to not listen to it the next time. The other reason that we don't listen to our intuition sometimes is, a lot of us, including me, I used to have this erroneous idea, this belief, that if I listened to my intuition, it meant that it would take me down the happiest, most comfortable, wonderful, fireworked, fairy tale, whatever path. And that happens too. A lot of the time when you listen to your intuition, you will go down the beautiful, go into the horizon with something lovely. However, there are many times when your intuition will also lead you down the path of maximum growth, which means it could be a painful road. It may not be the happiest road, right? The importance is being able to discern when your intuition is guiding you into something that's going to grow you, even if it's painful, and when it's not your intuition and you're in a situation that's basically a trap. And as I said, I'm going to make a separate video on that and give you more details on that later. Now, the benefits of listening to your intuition are humongous for your emotional and mental well-being, because it is really the way that you stay true to yourself. It is the way, the intuition is really the guiding beacon that keeps you true to your path. And also it helps you to stay connected to your needs. And we're going to talk about needs a little bit later in this video. So can't emphasize that enough. As much as possible and where possible, if you can do it all the time, more power to you. Listen to your intuition. Number 3 is listening to your feelings. Now, this is something that I notice a lot of people are literally they have lost that natural ability that we have to listen to our feelings and respond to them. And for this I blame society, I also blame the new age movement, I blame the this whole pop psychology movement, and even some therapists sometimes, because there is this whole and motivational speakers, because there's this whole idea going around that feelings, you have something called a positive feeling and something called a negative feeling, and the negative feelings should be absolutely ignored, and you should, as soon as you have a negative feeling, you've got to jump to the positive feeling, and oh, wait, back up, stop. No, it doesn't. It does not work like that, right? Feelings, by the way, are a combination of our emotions and our thoughts. So for example, you may be feeling sad, and that is an emotion, and you may have certain thoughts about that sadness, and that those are thoughts, and if you mix that together, that combination is called feelings. And every feeling that you have deserves to be listened to. It deserves a voice, because without that listening to that feeling, I want to ask you, if you do what the whole popular new age movement or motivational speaker movement asks you to do, which is bypass these feelings and jump straight into positive thinking by using a variety of techniques, where do you think the feelings go? Where do they go? I'll tell you where they go. They get suppressed, they get energetically held back. So what a lot of these techniques help you to do is, I'm not arguing that they don't make you feel positive very quickly or positive almost instantly, but at the cost of then oppressing feelings. It's like trying to climb up onto a really loaded, full of clothes laundry basket, and sitting on it really tight to make sure all the clothes stay down and you don't have to deal with that energy. But the problem is that when you do that, in the long run, there will come a day when you will have to deal with that energy, because it's like that proverbial, excuse me, sweeping things under the carpet. It will come back and it will bite you in the ass. All your feelings, whatever they may be, no matter how trivial they are, no matter how silly they sound, deserve validation. I know this from personal experience, because I got very, very ill, because when I first started on the spiritual path, and I started practicing meditation, and then I also went and attended all these seminars by motivational speakers who highly inspired me. And what I found happening was, over the next couple of years, instead of getting better, I had all these superficial ideas about positivity, which I would implement, and they would work for a little while. They worked really well for a little while. They gave me a fair amount of success in some ways. But eventually, what I landed up with was two nervous breakdowns, terrible addictions, which I had a hard time getting out of, and also all this energy started to impact my physical health eventually as well, which is what's going to happen if you suppress your emotions. So I learned my lesson the hard way. And I had to sit down and say, no, there is no such thing as being worried that you're going to have negative feelings and then your good will not manifest because no. There is, you sit down and you listen to those feelings, really listen to them. And when you do that, when you listen to them with the aim of just allowing them to run their natural course through your energy field or through your body, you will find that then you have a natural rush towards a disposition towards feeling positive. You don't have to force positivity. It will flow into positivity anyway. And also the effects on your psyche will be much, much healthier in the long run. So number 4 is practicing self-compassion and kindness. I am just amazed at how harsh we are on ourselves. I too at one point of time used to be very, very harsh on myself. And this is a social learning, because our society and our social structures are very, very almost machistic in their condemnation, their shaming, and their trivializing of suffering. I constantly hear, and all of us, I'm sure we've all had this experience, things like, oh, get over it, it's not such a big deal. Or, what are you crying about? It's not so bad. Are you going to even remember this in the next 10 years? Then it's not worth crying about. I once had this experience where I met this woman and her son, they had just, so this woman had just lost her husband and the son, his father. And she would break into tears. She would, you know, was still grieving this event. And every time she'd do that, her son would reach over and go like, Mom, you've cried enough. Now stop. Stop. You're just being weak. And I looked at the son and I said, if you don't mind me asking, how long has it been since your father passed away? He said, 3 months. By now, she should have been strong enough. And in my mind, I'm thinking, no way. Because grief doesn't have deadlines. You know, there is no such thing as a deadline. And the worst thing that you could do to someone who's grieving is to tell them to be strong because grief is weak. Grief is not weak. Vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is a type of a strength. If you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you will have more inner strength. If you try to run over your feelings and be harsh on yourself, you may look strong outwardly, but your psychological foundation inside will be very weak and it will tear apart at the first life disaster. I've even seen therapists being harsh. I remember there was this therapist I went to a couple of years ago who told me that sexual abuse, the effects of sexual abuse were not a big deal because she said, I can get rid of it like that. With hypnosis, 2 sessions and you're out. I don't need to see you again. Wow. She actually believed that she could just do this whole bypass and get rid of sexual abuse trauma like that. How very, very dangerous. I only started to make progress in my healing when I came across the work of Dr. Kristen Neff, who is a self-compassion researcher, and I'm going to share a small sample of what I do whenever I'm feeling sad or angry or any emotions or feelings that are currently very overbearing or are not allowing me to move forward in any way. And this is a very lovely thing to do because you can actually hug yourself like that. It's been proven to release oxytocin, which is the bonding chemical. And by hugging yourself this way, you actually will find that no matter how you're feeling, immediately you will feel a sensation of being soothed. And whatever you're going through, just tell yourself that it's okay, and be kind and be compassionate with yourself, and just tell yourself that no matter what it is, you're not going to judge yourself for having those feelings. And just by doing something as simple as this, you not only soothe. In fact, there's this whole study that's been done on what is known as the vagus nerve in the body, and there's a whole other video on that because it's too detailed to get into in this video. But basically, the vagus nerve is a nerve that helps us to self-regulate, to calm and to ground ourselves. And when you do this, this is one of the ways that you can self-regulate and soothe. You will find yourself calming, you will find yourself being more in tune with yourself, and you would be able to release whatever it is you're feeling. Or if you're not able to release it all in the moment, you would at least be on the path to resolving that emotional energy, as opposed to judging yourself, telling yourself that what you're feeling doesn't matter, or telling yourself to be strong and not cry. Because believe me, not crying when you want to cry is the same as not going to the bathroom to take a dump when you want to take a dump, or not going to eat a meal when you're hungry. It has nothing to do with strength. Number 5, setting boundaries. Now this is a big one. Now I know that for many of us, including myself, we were never taught boundaries, and as a result, we either have walls to keep people and their negative behavior out, or then we don't have any boundaries at all. And both ways don't work very well. One kills intimacy, and the other way, when you don't have any boundaries at all, allows any intrusive energy or anyone to just come and dump their crap on you. So boundaries are very, very essential for good mental health, because you can spend a lot of time practicing emotional hygiene, being compassionate with yourself, being kind, telling yourself the truth, and you could be in this wonderful space, and somebody could come along and totally dump their crap on you, and believe me, you're going to go back to square one. And if this continues on a constant basis, you are not going to be able to maintain any kind of health. Now, I know that setting boundaries for some of us is very, very difficult, and I have a video, an earlier video, on why setting boundaries doesn't work, and that video has an explanation of why boundaries are so difficult to set. So if you need some more information on that, you can watch that video. I will put it in the link below. However, eventually, as you get better at setting boundaries, it is an absolutely essential tool to protect and nurture the self. And one of the emotions that will help you to set boundaries is anger. And guess what? Anger is given such a bad rap. It has such a bad reputation, and you hear again all these popular memes that anger is poison, anger is bad, anger is destructive. Okay. Very simply, I'm just going to say, well, that is just pure crap, because anger is the fuel for transformation if you know and you are able to harness its energy in a manner that is more life forward. And to do that, you first need to stop condemning anger. You need to stop getting angry with yourself for being angry. You need to stop being harsh on yourself for having anger, because the anger, if you just listen to it, is trying to tell you that an injustice has been committed, that somebody has crossed a boundary, somebody's crossed a line with you. And listening to this anger, not with the intention of going and hurting somebody with it or being destructive with it. I am not condoning that kind. I'm not condoning terrorism and violence that do come from, well, mostly they come from suppressed and unresolved anger. I'm talking about listening to your anger, to understand what you need, what boundaries have been crossed, and then taking positive action to transform. In fact, I'm going to leave a lovely affirmation with you, which I was just using recently. I went to see my kinesiologist and I got this affirmation from her, and it's a very wonderful affirmation which you can use to get your anger to help you set boundaries and transform your situation instead of suppressing it. And it says that the energy of anger, that I now take the energy of anger, I'm aware of the energy of anger to transform my situation into something positive and one that grows me. So I'm aware of the power of anger to transform my situation, and see if just saying that or something similar to that is going to help you to set better boundaries. I am going to sign off now, and I would like you to watch part 2 of this video as well, in which we have 5 more tips on maintaining emotional and mental health. And till then, I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you and goodbye.